Now, I'll briefly introduce our panelists from the left, and please hold on to your applause until after I introduce all of them. First, we have Kate Balingit, General Manager of Mobility Solutions at Nexar. She'll moderate this panel discussion. Next, Scott Bong, Engineering Director at Byton. Next, Orlando Reyes, Director of Purchasing at Rivian. Next, Tony Nee, Founder and CEO of iCar Technology. And last but not the least, Jonathan Woods, Purchasing Manager at Series. Let's give our moderator and panelists a big welcome. Ms. Balingit, now the floor is yours.
Thank you. So my name is Kate Balingit. I'm the General Manager of Mobility Solutions at Nexar. We are a Tel Aviv-based startup specializing in computer vision and detection of roadside events on the edge. You'll hear from me in the next panel and a little bit more about Nexar, but right now it is my privilege to be moderating the panel on EVs with some very distinguished players from the industry. A little bit more about our participants. So Scott Bang here on the left is the Director of Engineering at Byton. He's responsible for thermal management system, CAE, and attributes such as NVH, aerodynamics, and material engineering. He's been in the automotive industry for over 20 years, and his EV experience started in Tesla in 2009. Next to him, we have Orlando Reyes. He's the Director of Powertrain and Electronics Purchasing at Rivian. He has 18 years of supply chain experience at both established OEMs like Ford and startups like Tesla and now Rivian. So he's currently the Director of Powertrain and Electronics Purchasing. Next to him, we have Tony. So obviously you just heard from Tony. He has been an active advocate and contributor to the EV industry for over 20 years now in executive management roles, and he is very passionate, obviously, about developing the next gen of electric powertrain. And then finally, we have Jonathan Woods. He's the purchasing manager in North America for Series EV. He also has extensive automotive experience, over 25 years working with OEMs such as Ford and GM, and he's currently been with Series for the last few years. Previously, he handled commodities such as wire harnesses, starters, and other electrical commodities, and he says that he left the comfort of working with big OEMs to work in the EV world due to the fascinating technology that EV startups have to offer. So I want to get started with a question about the EV market itself. In 2010, JD Power predicted a total of 5 million plug-in EV sales by 2020. Last year, there were only a total of 2.1 million deliveries of plug-in EV vehicles. There are some signs that the market is slowing. China, which used to be a huge growth engine, saw demand decline quite a bit last year, and Tesla sales fell 31% quarter over quarter in Q1. So how concerned are all of you that the market for EVs is not necessarily growing at the rate that analysts once predicted? And we can go from the left, starting with you, Scott.
Thank you for the question. Well, that's a load of questions. So. But I think we need to look at the market itself. Market have tendency to identify one technology and trying to get an answer for that new technology right away. I think we need to look at how hybrid vehicles became into our everyday life. Look at the growth of hybrid vehicles when they first launched. Nobody believed in it. But if you look at companies like Lexus, now they have not only an internal combustion engine, but hybrid vehicle in every model they sell. And the growth of electric vehicle, when you compare to the hybrid vehicles, how they penetrated our market, I think the electric vehicle has upper hand. I think it's just a matter of time. And I think it's just a matter of people's acceptance and the infrastructure that's gonna follow.
Great.
Okay. Thank you very much, first of all, for having me here, and thank you, Kotra. Short answer, not at all. Like Scott said, we're not trying to be all things to all people. You got to pick a niche and develop that niche. And I think that's what all of us here are doing and focusing on. Saying right now that the year 2019, 2020, everybody's going to be driving electric cars, that's a massive overstatement. I think you got to pick which areas or where the electric cars make sense and try to educate that customer base and get them to the point where Once you get in an electric car, once you drive that car, you can tell the difference between an ICE vehicle and an EV vehicle. And once you drive it every day, and yes, there's a range anxiety that goes with it, a little bit of that goes away. Some of it, in some cases, like Tony was mentioning, it's exaggerated. But overall, no, I don't think any of us here think that just because there was a dip in the sales or the Chinese market shrunk a little, we're not concerned at all on the viability of the EV market.
Thank you. I fully agree with him. I think customer or potential EV user, they need to, first they need to drive the vehicle, the electric vehicle, then they will understand what's the experience to drive electric vehicle. And then they will love it. And so definitely we need a time to do this. And most people, they buy a vehicle just for daily use. So they will consider range and the cost of driving that. And so I believe EV is the future, and definitely including the fuel cell vehicle. But we need a time to educate users and let them to understand that EV could be a good vehicle for their daily use. It's not just rich people's toys. And so it takes time, but I do believe that EV is the future. Also, I want to mention to develop a new car is really very hard. And that's the reason I wish all the EV company can be very successful. And there's actually 3 phases. First is R&D and to develop a new car, design a new car. But the second phase is harder, is manufacturing. So you need to put that car in mass production and also control the quality. That's even harder. And the most difficult part is the last one. And you need to build a brand. You need to have the sales distribution channel, and that's even harder. So it takes time, and especially when you go into mass production, and when you try to build a sales network and build your brand from scratch, is really difficult. So let's give them some time, and I believe the EV is the future. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, and thank you for Kotra for having us. Yes, the EV market will take off, but it will take time, and I agree with the other panelists. And the reason why it will take time is because you have a situation where you have something new on the market, but you have a public that is unaware of the EV automobiles as they are not right now. So what we do have to do is educate the public, making sure that they are aware that not only the vehicles are exciting and fun to drive, but more exciting and more fun than actually a gas-powered engine. It just takes time, and there are a lot of EV companies out there with a lot of new technology. Our company in particular are looking for a lot of that new technology so we can put that into our vehicle to make it exciting and fun to drive. But it really is going to take public awareness of what EV is all about. Now, I know some of you have heard of range anxiety. That's something that's extremely important. And I hear some people that have EV vehicles right now talk about, well, you know, I can't take a long trip with my electric vehicle. It's nice for small trips around the city and what have you, but the long trips are definitely an issue. Range anxiety is something that the public is well aware of, but we are aware of as well. So what we have to do is educate the public on the fact that the EV is the way of the future, and also come up with a new technology that extends range so we can get away from that fear.
Okay, so basically EVs are not going away. They're going to grow. So second question about the EV market. It is obviously very hard to start a new car brand. My dad actually worked for DeLorean, so of Back to the Future fame. So I've heard firsthand how difficult it is to launch a new brand. On top of that, it's very hard to launch an EV brand over the last decade, looking at the experiences of people like Coda and Fisker. So the question is, as kind of new EV brands, what lessons have you taken from some of these failures in the past? And what are you doing right now to make sure that you guys don't suffer the same fate? So, actually, I'm curious, Orlando, I'd like to start with you from Rivian.
No, I think what we learn is like any other car company or any one of you guys here, you got to focus on this is what I want to do, stay true to that, and not veer 50 different ways in terms of today I'm building this type of car, and the next presentation I have has 3 other models and level 5. You got to find that one area where you can make a difference, and you got to, like a hog, you got to focus on what exactly is that technology that's going to make my car better, and limit some of these questions about range anxiety, limit some of the questions about, do I really want an EV? In our particular case, limit some of the misconceptions about a truck cannot be an EV, that we cannot have a performance vehicle that's an EV that's actually running around doing all kinds of things that a Ford Raptor can do. So it's up to us to build a brand, but it's up to us to focus on what we want, focus on the key technologies that we want to invest on, and then hire the right people so we can do a lot of that in-house as opposed to outsource something. You guys are not going to like what I'm about to say, but we can we limit the amount of outsourcing to those technologies that we see that you guys are better than us at doing. So,
Scott?
Okay. Well, I'm a very strong believer in knowing history is about the only thing you can use to predict future. Companies like DeLorean, Studebaker, Parker, some of you guys may not be familiar with it, but those are the car companies that defined early US automotive history in 1920s and 1930s. Those companies came and go. The electric vehicle companies, we have a lot of news and media coverage on how electric vehicles companies failed last 10 years. I'm sorry, Tony, but the Faraday Future is one of them. The Coda is one of them. The difficult time that Fisker had. Well, I think it's just that's nature of the business, right? They have to have a right business model. It's not the question of how electric vehicles are going to survive, but how any technology startups are going to survive. Electric vehicle, as Orlando mentioned, if you're driving for a conventional electric vehicle, Tesla already did it, right? They built a car company they produce a car that's only driven or powered by electricity. That's it. It's not an electric car company that what Tesla drove. It was a car company. Elon Musk built a car company that is powered by battery. That's it. So that play was already done. For next generation of electric vehicle companies to survive is they have to find their new business model. We know how to build electric car now. Many companies are doing it. Volkswagen just announced that they are getting into a electric vehicle platform. But we need to take that conventional manufacturing product or technology product called electric vehicle. How do we create value chain after that? That can be a service, that can be subscription business model. There may be different ideas to how to add value to electric cars. I'm not just saying this because Byton is calling our vehicle not an automotive product or a car. We're calling it a smart device on wheels. So I think it's just a matter of whole industry looking at electric vehicle as a different business model. I think that's the only way the electric car companies can survive. Focusing on electric car, focusing on fuel cells, focusing on hybrid powertrain or internal combustion engine. I think that's not the right questions to ask. It's a matter of how do we create new business model or a value chain using these new platforms, new source of energy, or new technology.
And Tony, I know this question
It's very hard for me.
It's a bit loaded for you.
Yeah.
I will say that Faraday cars were beautiful.
Yeah.
So you obviously, based on your experience of trying to launch an OEM brand, pivoted quite a bit. Do you want to talk about kind of the moment when you realized you had to make that change?
Yeah. I have to say, Faraday Future is a great company, and they develop a great car. And if you search on the website, and especially on the YouTube, and FF91, and you will see the video, and it's a beautiful car. And I have to say, we suffer a lot, we experience a lot, and we really developed the company from scratch from 2014. And when we started the company, we only have a few people. And the peak time, we have more than, Faraday Future have more than 1,200 employees only in California headquarters. And we also have people outside US. So it's a great company, and they're still trying to get funding support to put this car in production. Actually, the car is already have all the panels from the hot tools, so it's a production-ready car. But I have to say, to make a new company, new EV company, is really hard. I've been through this, so I have to say, first thing is focus. And don't distract by everything else. Just focus, 100% focus on what you're doing. Because you are limited by the investment, you're limited by the people, you're limited by the supply chain support. And so focus is very, very important. And the second is collaboration. You need to have very good supplier and a business partner to support you. So I remember when we work with all the tier 1 supplier, they just refused to give us engineering support. They said, oh, that's what we have, just buy it. And that's really difficult for us, for EV startup. So you need to have a very good strategy to develop the supply chain and really support you. And the last thing is don't scare about failure. And actually, you can learn a lot from all the failures. But the only thing you shouldn't do is don't fail on the same things again and again. So learn lessons and don't fail on the same things again. And that's what I want to say about this EV company.
Well, it is a challenge to have a startup, and it's not for everyone, because there are a lot of great ideas that don't come to fruition because you may not have the right team involved, you may not have the right people, you may have a great team that are very, very educated, that know the business, but they don't have cohesiveness together. All of that is important in building an EV or a new business of any sort. You have to have the right team involved. When I'm looking for suppliers, for example, what I do is I build a foundation and a relationship with those suppliers. So my suppliers know that I'm working with them and it's a team effort. And I always tell suppliers, this is not a dictatorship, this is a partnership. If we succeed, you succeed. If you fail, we fail. So we want transparency throughout all of our supply base. If we get transparency from you, you will in turn get transparency from me as a serious employee. So those are the things that we're looking for. It's extremely, extremely important, and I can't emphasize enough how important it is to build those foundations early and to build that trust early, to work together to solve all of the problems that you may have as a new company.
Well, I want to add one point, and to really make it successful, you need to work harder, much harder than anyone else. I remember we have colleagues used to work for Tesla, And they told me when Tesla launched the Model 3, and Elon just sleep in the factory, and all other executives have to sleep with him in the factory, and to make sure they deliver those Model 3 on time. So really difficult for us, and that's the thing you need to be ready for that. Yeah.
But I'm just saying that I don't want you sleeping at our plants, okay? I mean, just...
Okay, so now let's move on to EV technology. So there are multiple clean energy technologies in the market: battery, hybrid, fuel cell. You guys obviously all represent, battery electric companies, so it's definitely the dominant one right now. What do you think about the market for fuel cells? I mean, the Korean government recently initiated a project titled Hydrogen Fueled Society, and Hyundai Motors announced they will invest over $40 billion in hydrogen vehicle development. Are these two separate markets for battery electric versus fuel cell? Which technology is going to emerge the winner? Let's mix it up. So, Jonathan, do you want to start with this one, actually?
Well, I don't know who's going to be the winner. Hydrogen technology is something that looks good, but with hydrogen technology, you still need electricity to power that reaction. So we're headed down the road with battery technology. We believe that battery technology is the way of the future. Of course, there's always new technologies that come out. We're always interested to hear what those new technologies are. But right now, our path is on battery technology.
And Tony?
I think the technology is the difficult part, and we need to focus on the battery cell, of course, but I believe fuel cell also has opportunity, and we welcome all the new technology and to make this happen. But the only one thing I don't believe is the gas engine, and all the combustion engine, I think that's old style, and that will be out of the market very soon. And so fuel cell, solid state, the lithium battery, and all those new technology can help us to enable the new EV, the new future mobility. And we believe all new technology, and we just want to support all of them.
My turn. I'm not going to quote Elon on what he said about fuel cells, but I think it goes back to what I just said about being hyper-focused on one thing. We're hyper-focused on delivering the best vehicle we can with the battery technology. Other companies, like Hyundai, they have the time and effort, we have the limited resources, and we need to focus on what do we think is the best answer right now, and we think the best answer right now is battery technology.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think for now, it's definitely battery, not the fuel cell. But fuel cell definitely have also the future as well.
Was your question about which technology is going to win, or is it general assessment?
General assessment, and also is the market separate, or are they both going after the same pie?
So does anybody know when was the first hydrogen fuel cell cars were produced? Does anybody can answer this? Well, if I don't have a right answer, I'm going to answer the question with a question. So 1950s, the GM actually used one of their large van to build a hydrogen fuel cell car. So hydrogen technology has been around a long time. And at the same time, electric vehicle, if you look at 1910, 1920, the electric cars were better performing, sold more than internal combustion engine, right? So that being said, is one technology better than another? It's a solution to a question, right? It's the answer to a question. It is all market driven, I believe. And timing, as we are living today, the battery technology became very common and accessible in 1990s when lithium-ion battery was invented. So lithium-ion battery is only 20, 25-year-old technology that that has a lot of a technology revolution, material evolution that's going to improve battery technology in the future at the same time. But fuel cell, let's look at an energy balance. How much energy is required to break down water, combine water? Well, both battery electric car and hydrogen, it is a different source of energy that we are using to propel our vehicles. All comes down to how do we create energy, right? If answer is that we're going to create energy using fossil fuels, none of those two technologies are valid. But if we move into renewable energy, more environmental friendly energy creation method, the both technology are valid. So to answer your question, no, you should not separate between those two. Is one better than another? Well, there is time for technology revolution, material revolution. All those revolutions that we're going to see in the future is going to become enabler of either technology. And automotive industry is big enough that it could have more than one powertrain solution. I think we can all survive and we can be a big, happy family.
I like that, a big happy family. Okay, continuing with EV technology. So Waymo recently announced their plans to develop wireless charging for their self-driving cars. How realistic is wireless charging for EV batteries? What are some of the key technical challenges, and what does a realistic time horizon for this technology look like? And I guess we can keep going. Let's start with Orlando.
Okay. How realistic is it? It is out there already. It's been out there, yeah, for a while. We should tell you a lot about the adoption of it. And just to give you an example how difficult it is to basically do the wireless charging for the phone and how many people actually use the wireless charging for the phone, should give you a general idea of at least where my thoughts are regarding EV wireless charger. I see it as a overcomplicated system that the usage cases are really not there, and something that we shouldn't spend a lot of time trying to solve. I would rather spend a lot of time trying to solve how do we charge the vehicle quicker. How do we, get the most density out we can of the battery cell? Instead of, it seems like an activity that's fine for larger, more established companies, but not something that I don't think it brings the customer a ton of excitement, and the usage of it, I see it as more of a niche thing.
Tony, your thoughts?
I think future mobility is all about user experience. So wireless charging definitely can give you convenience, and you don't need to plug in and plug out. But the problem is, I fully agree with those two, and the power you can get from the wireless charging so far is not enough. And you need to put the car there for maybe day and night for at least more than 15 hours to fully charge your battery, or even longer, I think. Currently, the best wireless charging system is 7 kilowatt. I think that's the best. And Qualcomm is working on the 11 kilowatt, but it's not in the market now. Yeah, so it's definitely, I feel it brings the convenience, but the power is not enough. So if you can fast charging the battery pack, if you have technology, I think we should focus on that one first, then talk about the wireless charging. Yeah.
Jonathan, do you have anything to add?
Well, just that if there's a supplier out there that understands that and has an idea for wireless charging, please come see me. Because, yeah, it would be the holy grail. It would be something that would be, fantastic. Is it pie in the sky? Well, right now it is. However, if you have some ideas, by all means, and if you have the solution for that, we want to see you.
And Scott, do you have some history on wireless charging? Would you like to educate us on when this happened and where it's going?
Qualcomm, right? Qualcomm has had that technology for a while. Qualcomm is not just a telecom or IT company, but Qualcomm had implemented, I think, wireless charging 6.6 about 10 years ago. So I don't think it's a technology question. I think it's an economy question. The technology is there. It's just a matter of how much OEMs or the consumers are willing to pay for it. The wireless charging was implemented as an option for Nissan Leaf as well in the past. So, yeah, I don't think it's a technology question, but I think we should look at it as more of an economy question and how we can go into mass production and lower cost for consumers.
Okay. So let's move on to supply chains, which is obviously of great interest to our audience. Automotive has one of the most complex value chains. There's been a serious barrier to entry for several startups in the past. Jonathan, last night you were telling me about the challenges of, placing an order for 50,000 parts and your supplier partner needing to retool a bunch of processes only to find that you only need 10,000 of those parts. So, how do EV startups begin to build up their supply chain of fuel cells, batteries, and other relevant parts? And how should suppliers think about working with EV startups versus the traditional OEMs that they've been working with to date?
I'll take that.
Yeah.
So we were talking about supply chain and the amount of parts that are actually needed versus the parts that the company may say that they need. So supply and demand is extremely important. The example was that the OEM states that they need 50,000 units of this particular part. The supplier says, well, okay, if you need 50,000 units, that's fine. I'll employ, I'll tool up, I'll assign engineers to this product so we can get you 50,000 units. Well, at the end of the year, you've only ordered 10,000 units. That is an extremely, extremely difficult challenge. It's one challenge when I'm hiring someone that I always ask, because I want to know if that person can be knowledgeable enough, not only knowledgeable enough, but intuitive enough to understand that that is an extremely, extremely difficult situation. Remember earlier I had said that transparency is the key, that transparency is extremely important. I'm not going to give a supplier a number that I don't think we can hit. That's unfair to the supplier, and that costs both the company and the supplier money in the end. It costs the OEM in the end because they may have to decrease the amount that they are receiving from that part. It costs the supplier in the end because they have, again, retooled and hired in order to meet those numbers. So you have to be very careful in the numbers that you state that you're going to get. Be honest as a company and be honest to your suppliers. Transparency is extremely important. So you want to be aware of the actual market and how many parts you will actually need. Do your research, do your homework. That's what we try to do in the business. Because without that, you can't have situations where you're asking suppliers to give you an astronomical amount of parts and only can deliver on very few.
And Orlando, I know you experienced this firsthand at Tesla. Do you want to add anything?
I'll keep it to it's basically a twofold question, right? In terms of what are the differences is when you're dealing with the startups, there's the pressure of trying to get things done quickly, but there's also the reality that we're trying this for the first time. So there's a lot of changes. We ask for a lot of flexibility. We ask for different business models. We're basically trying to figure out, in terms of innovation, but also innovation of thinking, how do I solve this issue? I cannot afford to have the same solution as Ford, GM, Chrysler, BMW. We need things that are faster. We need things that we may take a risk on in terms of getting on the vehicle. We also have to build a pretty good team that can identify what's worth going after and what's not worth going after. I do understand that when we show up, we're asking for a huge capital outlay, and that is always a sensitive subject because of what's happened before with some of the other EVs. but do understand that we do have more flexibility than your typical OEM in terms of how we manage all those questions. We also have more flexibility in terms of how we manage your legacy suppliers as opposed to NVIDIA. I wouldn't have the same conversation with NVIDIA in terms of how to structure contracts that I would with another supplier. And we have that knowledge because we have a work base that is not so much on your legacy automotive, but we have different people from different industry. And at least I make a habit of hiring people from different types of industries to make sure that we know how to solve issues at the board level, and we know how to solve issues at the battery level, we know how to solve issues at the drive unit level, because all of them have different challenges. Now, the second question about raw material, right? Battery cells, battery cells, battery cells. In my mind, there has to be a breakthrough eventually. There's only so many gigawatt hours out there, and there's only so many companies out there that can build a gigafactory. Now, there has to be a breakthrough on how we looked at battery cells, how we cost them, the density of it, that it's not, frankly, is not there yet. So we're basically treating it as a commodity when in reality, we need to shift the focus a little bit and try treating it as something that it is a large portion of the cost of the vehicle, and at the end of the day, it makes the vehicle what it is. It's the fuel of the vehicle. So we're trying to think of models of, all right, so how do we, with having limited volume and having limited sway, how do we get involved in that raw material chain for batteries? So how do we work with a partner that we can work together in terms of, all right, how do we secure, not only secure capacity, but make sure the cost of that capacity is not exorbitant. So it is the challenge that we deal with every day, is just how to get to it. That's what we're here for.
Tony, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, I think Orlando and Jonathan, they're definitely expert on supply chain. And, they know how to talk to a supplier. But let's see what's the trend of the whole industry. I think everyone knows Volkswagen introduced an MEB platform recently. And they even want to share this platform with other OEMs. This never happened before in auto industry. What this means, I think it means all the current key technology OEMs believe bring them the core competence. In the future, will never give them the same power to be ahead of others. And if you want to win the game, you need to focus on the user experience, which means the key technology for engine, for suspension, for all the mechanical parts in the past in the future will become commodity. What means commodity? Means people make in large volume and in standard size and standard format. And that's the reason I talk about the building block concept. And this is really the future. And I think many of you guys, they're your suppliers to the auto industry. So you care about volume. So if people and OEMs talk about share the platform or share the building blocks, and then which means you can bring those components in large volume if you can make it. And so in the future, I believe OEMs will more focus on service, on the user experience. They will become a service company. And Ford already changed their name from Ford Motor to Ford Mobility, which means their strategy is different. They will focus on service and mobility service, which means all the key components now or in the past will not be the key components in the future. So you need to think about how the supply chain will be changed with this big trend. I deeply believe that common share the technology or the hardware, the platform will be the future. And also, I want to mention this again. I fully agree with Danny. And the future, the car is really defined by software. All the hardware is defined by software. Yeah. Thanks.
Scott, you're on a roll. Can you find a way to make a historical reference in an answer to this question?
Actually, I'll give you one of my example. I see one of the companies that I started working in 2008, company called Uri. So in 2008 Model S, whole industry was so afraid of putting high voltage in the cabin, so your passenger compartment. I had this idea of, I'm going to design an electric heater and actually place that heater in the cabin. So all my colleagues who's working at SAE told me that I was going to get sued when something goes wrong. But I had this idea, I designed it, and then I started approaching suppliers. Nobody wanted to do it. It was actually me begging for their assistance to co-development. So it's the supply chain. I think Orlando mentioned flexibility. What it comes down to is that the approach has to change completely. Traditionally, OEM, car maker, is going to do a concept development, write a RFQ, the requirement for a quotation, give it to suppliers, and supplier puts together a quotation commercially, submit it, they evaluate it, and they select the suppliers. But with new startups where there is no established procedure, process, the whole supply chain selection process turned into a more or less of a co-development or a joint development, rather than selecting a supplier. So the electric vehicle companies are looking for partners, not just the suppliers. I think that's covered between Jonathan and Orlando saying trust, partnership, and the flexibility.
If I can have one more, I know we're running out of time with the worry example. It serves to take the risk at the beginning, because now a lot of the components they make right now, and we work with them initially, now all these other suppliers are coming in. It's just a commodity to them, where worry is ahead of most of them because they took the risk. And now there's an air heater on a lot of these electric vehicles, and guess who's there with 5 years of know-how saying, yeah, here you go, we build this right now. It's worrying because they were willing to take the risk. So.
But by the way, Orlando and I worked together at Tesla, and I was engineering lead, and Orlando was a purchasing lead.
Can I say just one more thing really quick, because I know she came up with the 5 minutes. I could barely read it because these eyes are kind of old.
Now they came up with the 1 minute, 2 minutes ago. So, final closing statement.
Okay, so transparency is extremely important, as I've said, and I can't beat that down enough. Sometimes suppliers will come in and say, well, I can give you this product X, for this really low amount, and then in 3 years you're going to raise the rate. And that's not the way you do business. The way you do business is to analyze what the actual need is and price accordingly. Myself, that's what I want out of a supplier. I want a supplier that's going to be able to analyze what the market is, how much supply that they will need, how they'll make money, and believe me, I understand that SG&A and profit is a real thing. I understand that you are in business to make money. OEMs do understand that, and OEMs want to make money as well. Of course, I want the lowest price, the lowest price, but also I do understand that suppliers need to make money in order to stay in business. So it is definitely a partnership. How's that?
Very nice. All right, well, thank you so much to all of the panelists. I'm sorry we didn't get to audience questions, but these guys will be here all day. You know what they look like, so please feel free to find them and pepper them with additional questions. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you. If you can stay seated for maybe like 3 minutes tops, we'll open the floor to the audience and maybe take 1 or 2 questions. 저희 패널들에게 질문이 있으신 분들은 손을 들어주시면 저희가 마이크를 전달드리겠습니다. 한국어로 질문하시면 저희 패널이신 바이턴사의 스카우팡 엔지니어 디렉터께서 패널분들께 통역을 해주시겠습니다. 혹시 질문 있으실까요?
I think where I see it and mostly applies to what you're asking is on the modularity of having a 80 kilowatt drive unit, 100, 150, 200, 225 kilowatt drive unit, and having basically the housing for those, and which will drive larger volume for you guys, but it'll drive a little bit of complexity because we're talking about larger castings. So it's the same thing. Everything is basically, as we become more modular, as we become all these other EVs, there's certain ranges that you want for those drive units. At least kind of narrowing it down to the micro is finding a supplier that can work with us in terms of making a more complicated piece, that at the end of the day, as we grow, we will have that same component on multiple vehicles.
Are you looking at any types of material? Anything?
Yes. Is anything lightweight, anything that'll make us, yeah, all the time.
Yeah, lightweight is the key, but stampings is not as critical as electrical components. Electrical components change drastically and constantly, and they do make the EV vehicle a lot more unique than the gas-powered vehicle. So castings are something that it's basically not a technology that's going to go away, because there's always room for someone that's going to do castings, and that's not going to change. We're always going to need those.
저희 질문 하나만 더 받겠습니다. 그 앞쪽에 안경 쓰신 분, 네.
예, 한국말로 질문하겠습니다. 지금 그 말씀을 들어보니까 지금 이제 그 연료 전지하고 그다음에 배터리하고 그 전기차에 관련돼서 이제 여러 가지 말씀을 해주셨는데, 연료 전지는 모르겠는데 전기차 같은 경우에는 지금 그 배터리에 대한 어떤 용량이라든가 파워가 굉장히 중요한데, 이게 만약에 전기가 그 배터리가 문제가 생겨가지고 그래가지고 자동차의 구동에 문제가 생겼다던가 아니면 일부 어떤 기능이 못했을 경우에, 그럴 경우에 혹시 그 백업 배터리에 대한 디맨드도 있는 건지, 그런 거 같은 거를 또 이렇게 별도로 이렇게 연구해가지고 그런 그 알고리즘이라든가 아니면 그런 하드웨어 쪽을 그 백업하는 그런 시스템도 이렇게 준비하고 계시는 그 업체들이 있는 건지에 대해서 궁금합니다.
I guess I'm the designated translator. So his question is related to a failure of your main battery pack. If there's any backup battery pack or other technologies that are being developed. So it's a technology question. Should I answer that one? Or? Well, I like comparisons, so I'm gonna answer that. We don't have backup to an internal combustion engine. I hope that answers your question. However, here's a little bit of unknown fact for electric car. In every single electric vehicle, the traction battery pack is lithium-ion battery, but there's always a secondary lead-acid battery that is powering electrical system and using as a backup or the failures or the critical key safety function. Why is that? Well, that's again another technology limitation of the battery technology. The lithium-ion battery, it only charges at 0 degrees. If you go below 0 degrees, the lithium-ion battery cannot be charged or loses efficiency significantly. So in order for your car to actually start at minus 20 degrees, when you park your car outside, we need lead-acid battery. So again, we talked about fuel cell and everything else. The battery technology is still at infancy. There's a long way to go. I think during one of the questions, Tony mentioned solid-state battery, right? Solid-state battery is the next generation. Lithium metal is next generation. Zinc air. There are many, many battery technologies that will revolutionize electric vehicles again. Will that come in next 2 years, 10 years? That's the question. So Again, the internal combustion engine doesn't require backup internal combustion engine, so I don't.
And you're dealing with
Thank you.
modules also, by the way. So an electric vehicle may have 9 modules, 12 modules. You can control to the point where one of those modules is failing, the other ones are still be fine. So you technically do have a backup in there if you do have one cell failure.
And also, I think you need to have a very good technology and a manufacturing process on the battery cell first. And if you can make a very good, reliable, and safe battery cell, then you can use those battery cell to make a brick and module, then use those brick and module to make a pack. When you design a pack, you need to have, like I mentioned, a very good, robust thermal system. The thermal system will heat the battery pack in the cold temperature, and will also cool the battery pack when you fast charge the battery pack. So there's a lot of way to avoid a failure and to improve the quality, improve the safety, and improve the performance as well. And also the very good battery management system also can help you to bring the safety and the performance and also reduce the failure possibility. And in the future, maybe there will be AI function and to help to collect data and to analyze how you can use the battery pack and in which way you use the battery pack and can make it safe and make the battery pack last longer. I'm not sure if I answered the question.
All right, thank you for your questions. If our panelists don't have anything to add to that, we'll end the Q&As here. Thank you. Thank you for your thoughts and insights. Please give another big round of applause to our moderator and panelists. Thank you.